Hello? Hello?
As you already know, Jess Mariano left Stars Hollow. We all watched it happen. It seemed like one episode he was there, and then the next he wasn't. And if you've ever gone back and tried to make sense of it, you've probably landed on the same explanation most people do. He left because of Rory, or because of Luke. But I'm here to tell you that's really not what happened. And the real story is a lot stranger, and honestly a lot sadder, than the romantic tragedy everyone's been carrying around with them for the last 20 years. So it makes sense to start with what actually happened on screen. Because even here, most people are a little confused and misremember what actually happened. Chapter 1. The real reason Jess left. The conventional read on Jess's exit is that he fell apart after his relationship with Rory went sideways. He got distant, he got cold, and he pushed her away. That's the emotional memory most viewers have. But if you go back and watch the actual sequence of events in season 3, the thing that sets his departure in motion isn't actually the breakup. Jess has been recently spending more time working at Luke's and Walmart than at school.
Yeah, you work at Walmart? Yeah, I cannot picture you working at Walmart. Oh my God, you work at Walmart.
And by the end of his school year, his principal let him know that he wasn't eligible to graduate.
You flunked out.
I what?
You're not graduating, Jess.
And it's believed that this is the actual trigger. When Luke finds out that Jess refuses to repeat his senior year, Jess declares that he won't go back to school, and because of this, Luke tells him that since he broke their agreement, he needs to leave.
Then you gotta go.
And then Jess and Rory share an awkward conversation on the morning bus a day later. And then when Rory gets off, we get that final famous shot of Jess pulling out a book out of his duffel bag. And then that's it. That's the last real moment between them. He doesn't explain anything, he doesn't even say goodbye. Jess didn't tell Luke, and he didn't tell Rory he was going to leave. He did continue to call Rory in California.
Hello? Hello?
But he never spoke when she answered, even though she knew it was him. So the show clearly frames it as a heartbreak, and it looks like a heartbreak. But the actual thing that set him off was his academic failure, and the shame that came with it. Jess was smart. Everybody knew he was smart. He was quick-witted, he was interested in arts and literature, he just wasn't academically motivated. His lack of parental support from his mother and the absence of his father left him feeling very alone, and this is what gave him that short temper and the reason to lash out on people. He was working 2 jobs, he was failing school, and he didn't tell Luke a single thing. And when the moment of recognizing finally came, it was too late when he had no ability to hide it anymore. He didn't stay to face it, he just got up and left. He left before Luke could fully process it, and before Rory had time to react to it, but most importantly, before Stars Hollow could form an opinion about him. The reason this matters is because it reveals something about Jess that was underneath all his quick remarks and jokes. He wasn't just a bad boy who couldn't commit, he was a kid who was terrified of being seen failing. And when the terror peaked, he did the only thing that made him feel in control. He disappeared. Which brings us to the darker layer, the ones the writers built in and the one that nobody seems to be talking about. Jess's father, Jimmy Mariano, who abandoned him when he was just a child. Chapter 2. The Generational Echo.
Hey,
Hey.
I'm Rory.
Yeah, I figured.
When Jess first arrived and Liz called Luke to take him in, she said that Jimmy went out for diapers and never came home. No explanation, no goodbye, just gone. Does that sound familiar? And Jess spent his entire childhood carrying that around with him. It shaped how he related to people and how he never could let people fully in. The whole time he was in Stars Hollow, you're watching a kid who was abandoned trying to figure out how not to get abandoned again. And to be honest, he wasn't really good at this. And that's why he ended up hurting the people around him that actually loved him. Now this was all on purpose. The writers created this as a generational echo. And in the moment he leaves Stars Hollow is the moment he actually becomes his father. And to be honest, this is a much darker reading that the writers intended. It's not that he didn't love Rory, he did. But when the pressure got high enough, his instinct was to vanish. Now this is a completely human reaction, especially when you factor in he was 17. But here's where the story gets a little strange. Because while all of this was playing out on screen, something completely different was happening behind the scenes, and it explains why Jess's arc had gotten written this way. Chapter 3. How Jess almost became his own star. The penultimate episode of season 3, Here Comes the Sun, was meant as a backdoor pilot of a show centered around Jess known as Windward Circle. Windward Circle was a proposed spin-off centered around Jess Mariano and his relationship with his absentee father Jimmy. It was set in Venice Beach, California, and would follow Jess living there while he tried to build a relationship with his father and find some stability. Reportedly, the WB had committed to 6 full episodes, but then eventually dropped it because the cost of filming on Venice Beach was just too much. The WB and Warner Bros. Cited the cost of shooting the entire show on location in Venice Beach as the reason for dropping the show, and the creators Amy Sherman Palladino and Daniel Palladino did not think it would be like this. So the actual reason Jess's future got rewritten wasn't that Amy Sherman Palladino decided his arc with Rory was done. It wasn't a story decision, it was a budget line. And then Stars Hollow was actually part of the Warner Brothers lot, so Gilmore Girls didn't have to film on location often, they had that set. But then Venice Beach was a completely different conversation, and the network looked at what it would cost to put a show there full time and just said no. Amy Sherman Palladino actually owned a home in Venice while the spin-off was being developed, and she actually liked the idea of having a sunny contrast to the Gilmore Girls autumn-winter vibes. She wanted it, and the writers wanted it. And according to Rob Estes, who played Jimmy Mariano, they had actually shot a pilot and it got picked up.
Look, I'm tired of you. I'm really tired of the apple dumpling gang, so just give me my book and our interaction in this world will end.
You know what? I'm tired of you too. So I'm just gonna have to say bye.
Hey!
So we could have been looking at a very different situation if they had made a few different decisions. He recalled that the network wanted to pick it up for 9 episodes, but Amy wanted more, and since she didn't want to do it the way they had approved, she essentially said her way or no way, so they didn't do it. And that pilot footage that had already been shot was actually repurposed for that episode Here Comes the Sun. Now think about what that actually means for everything you watched in season 3. Now it makes sense why Jess's exit from Stars Hollow wasn't designed as a goodbye. It was designed as a launch. The writers were setting him up to be the star of his own show, with his own arc, with his own world, and his own chance to grow up on screen in a way Gilmore Girls wouldn't have let him. But then accounting killed him and Stars Hollow had to absorb his wreckage. But by the end of the actual series, it's important to note that Jess grew up into a hardworking man who published his own novel and expressed gratitude for everything Luke did for him.
I'm very proud of you, of what you're going for.
But sadly, most of his character development happened off screen, and Gilmore Girls doesn't really check in on Jess after he leaves Stars Hollow. And to be honest, that's not really a storytelling choice, but that's just what happens when the show that was supposed to tell his story doesn't exist anymore. And then Windward Circle would have explained the massive changes that Jess went through from season 3 to season 6. As a little sidebar, the gap that always felt a little strange was how he went from a kid who can't graduate high school to a guy running a small press in Philadelphia who's written lots of books. That's a real transformation, but most importantly it's earned, and we didn't get to see it on screen, and instead we just got the before and after. Then there's Milo, the actor who actually played Jess, who had some very specific ideas how Jess's story should end. And I tell you, they are nothing like what happened on screen. Chapter 4. The alternate darker ending. According to an interview with E! Entertainment in 2006, Milo actually stated that he wanted the creators to Jess off violently. He suggested that he actually wanted to get hit by a bus or in the neck. Now just sit with that for a second. The actor playing the character was so convinced that Jess's trajectory didn't make sense that the redemption arc the show was building felt fundamentally at odds with who Jess actually was. And his instinct was to let it end violently rather than let it continue. He gave the logic that if only Jess died in his tragedy, would it truly be the actual end of his roller coaster road. And that's a wild contrast to how the revival actually ended his arc. In Gilmore Girls A Year in the Life, Jess shows up in Philadelphia, calm and centered, running a publishing house, and quietly nudging Rory toward writing her book.
You should write a book.
Ugh, thanks for the Naomi Shropshire flashbacks. Lovely.
And I know what you should write.
What?
You should write about you and your mom.
What?
And for the most part, he's basically the most emotionally evolved person in the room most of the time. He's not there for himself, not there to entertain himself, he's there to ask Rory real questions that just get her thinking. Then Milo himself said he was really happy with where the character actually did end up. But the fact that his gut instinct years earlier was to torch the whole thing, that tells you something about how unresolved the Jess character actually was at the time, and that even the person playing him felt this way. But to be honest, both of those things can be true at once. Jess's redemption arc is real and is moving, and Windward Circle was meant to be the bridge between the kid who ran and the man who came back. But without it, the transformation just kind of happens, and you're just left to fill it in yourself. Quickly, if you've made it this far, tell me if you're team Jess or not, and don't just say a name, actually make a case for it, because I am. But here's where to actually land on this. Jess Mariano mostly left Stars Hollow because he found out he was going to fail school, and rather than facing his own failures, he did the only thing his life actually taught him to do. And the show dressed it up in a romantic drama, but the real engine of that exit was a gamble at trying to make a spin-off. His own show had a title, it had a cast, it even aired an actual unofficial pilot episode, but the companion series just never launched. The network killed it over production costs, the footage got folded back into Gilmore Girls, and the story of how Jess actually grew up was left untold. And to be honest, what you watched wasn't a clean ending. It was a character who was owed a better exit and just simply didn't get it. But the actual ending was all wrapped up neatly in a bow, showing how he repurposed his emotional trauma into something positive. And it's nice to know that the guy who grew up actually earned the respect of the actor who played him. Which is probably the most Jess Mariano thing about this whole story. He ended up figuring it out, but we didn't get to watch. Thank you guys for watching. See you in the next one.